All right, go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. Let me first greet you with the greetings of Assalamu alaikum wa Ramadan Mubarak. That means peace be upon you. That's the Assalamu alaikum. And wa means and. Wa Ramadan Mubarak, which is the greetings one that Muslims give one another. That's the Assalamu alaikum. And the Ramadan Mubarak is the greetings that we give during this month of fasting, Ramadan Mubarak. So you will hear that frequently, and it'll be a great thing to learn and practice with your Muslim children and family. But we'll go over that again. I'm going to go first over to sharing. Let me share. Oh, I need to have the ability to share my screen.
Should be good now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yes, here we go. All right, very good. And I'm going to thank you as well, David, for this opportunity to share this month of Ramadan. You know, I've been with the RJ practicing and facilitating in RJ for, I think this is my 6th year. And interestingly, because of how Ramadan is set up, whenever we will have our end of the year celebration, in most cases, I would be fasting. So I wouldn't be eating. And you may have noticed in the past, sometimes I would just keep the area clean, you know, or space myself out because of wherever the fast was and the level of energy that I would have. And we'll talk a little bit more about that so that you will understand it more with your families. So fasting in Ramadan. This is basic information. It's information that I've gotten that will give you the indicators of where you should begin to do your own search and understanding about Muslims in this particular month of Ramadan, as well as other subjects, I'll have to say. And also, as a note, that the idea of Ramadan and fasting not just being a month relegated to Muslims who may be from the Middle East. There are Muslims from all over the planet. Every ethnic group and every culture that you can bring to mind right now, there are Muslims in those groups who are fasting at this moment all over the planet. It's really beautiful, especially when the end of the fast occurs, then usually you'll find a lot of posting of pictures of Muslims celebrating the Eid, which is the celebration. Now, this slide is important. When we talk about Islam, there's some basic things that you have to understand as it relates to where fasting is in the practice of Islam. There are 5 basic pillars in Islam. The first one is called Shahada. Shahada means to witness, and tain means 2 things. And so the first thing that we witness and Muslims witness is that the belief in Allah. And in this language, Allah literally means the deity or the God, the one God. And Muhammad is the last messenger. So when we think about religion, we think about different prophets and different messengers. And in this first pillar, it is the witnessing. This is what you say to become a Muslim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abdahu wa rasuluh. I bear witness that there's only one God, and God does not have any partners or associates or children. And I bear witness that Muhammad is the last messenger. It's the seal of the prophets. The second is Salat. And so we pray 5 times a day. That's the Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. In the month of Ramadan, there is an extra prayer, and we'll come to that in a moment, that makes our day last longer into the night because of that extra prayer. Each one of these prayers is timed according to where the sun is, based on what time it is on our clocks. I don't use my watch anymore for the times of prayer. I can typically look at where the sun is, engage with my shadow if it's prayer time. So in the month of Ramadan, this becomes important because we have the prayers, but there's also a timing for when we should begin our fast and when we should end our fast. And we'll talk about that a bit more. The third pillar is zakat, which is the tax or the charity. The fourth pillar is siyam. Sometimes it's referred to as siyam, sometimes as saum. So that's a Siyam or Saum, saum or siyam. And it just depends on the dialect with that variation. And it means to fast. So that's the fourth pillar. And then the last pillar is Hajj, and that's where we make the pilgrimage to Mecca. As a quick note about the Hajj, I was able to make Hajj about 7 years ago. Let me tell you, that is the most beautiful experience that I have ever had. I was able to see in groups, and we use the language cohorts, but in groups, every nationality of people on the planet. And because we're going in cohorts and in groups, it's easy to distinguish the dress, the feature, the height, the size. And the only country that had variation in the people as representation was America, was the United States. We were of different colors and different heights and different textures and flavors, where all of the other ones, you could say, oh, those are Russians, or they're from the Caspian Sea, or they're from Japan, or they're from China. But our country was the only country where there was that variation, and that's with the Hajj. Now, Ramadan is a month. It is the name of the month. These are the Islamic months. And they all have a history behind them in their naming, just like our months do in America. January, February, March, there's a history behind each month. There's a history behind each day of the week, the days of the week that we use, the months of the year. There's a history behind that. It's the same in Islam. There's a history behind every month and how it got its name or received its name. So Ramadan, now you see it's a Z because of the language. Sometimes there's variations with the language and it depends on who's translating it. But Ramadan, so imagine that Z making the D sound. Ramadan, as a note in the language, this is R, and this is the M, so this is the D. That's how I know this is Ramadan. And in the month of Ramadan is the month that we fast. It is the 9th month, but it's on the lunar calendar. So it's never, as I've been fasting for more than 40 years, the month continues to move. So I never fast it's never at the same time. I fasted in the summer when the days were so long, it was really difficult. I fasted in the winter where the days were shorter and it was much easier. Because it's on the lunar calendar, there's a variation of time in terms of days that are added on to it. And so it continues to move forward or backwards. That's that thing in my head around my learning difficulty. So I made a note somewhere. Let's see. All right, we're moving along well. Now, this is really exciting, this idea of when Ramadan is. And the number of days that the Muslims are fasting, and how we go about identifying when to start. Now, you will find with your families and with your students sometimes that everybody doesn't begin on the same day. So you may have one family that's fasting on Monday, and then another group of families may not start until Tuesday. That's because there's the sighting of the moon is an indicator of when to start the month. Because it's lunar, the moon indicates the beginning of a month. And in order to say, yes, it's the beginning, it has to be sighted. Now, for those Muslims who are relying upon Saudi Arabia sighting of the moon, which is a day ahead of us, then they may start a day early. But a part of the religion is you have to be able to sight the moon in your locale. And so you find then Muslim groups, some beginning a day before another, and others beginning the day after. And you also find the ending of Ramadan happening in the same way. So Muslims then at the school around that time, it's a bit anxious because you're trying to see, do I start fasting tomorrow? When I talked to David about this, I hadn't started yet because you have to keep your eye on when it's time to start the fast. So families are trying to keep an eye on, do we start tomorrow? Because there's preparation that you have to make for it, which means you have to get up early before the sunrise. Families and children are getting up, for those children who are of age, are getting up before the sunrise, having a light meal and praying, and then going on about their day. And again, we'll get into that a bit more. But the beginning of it is important because you have to prepare yourself for what's ahead in that day. What it would look like. And as a note, the other beauty of it is that because of this, Muslims became very skilled in astronomy and looking at the stars and the moon and the movements in order to determine, when the month would begin and when it would end, as well as other things. And so this is an example of it. I had, on one occasion, actually went out and was able to sight the moon. It was so beautiful. And it was just a slither. It was almost surreal. It was like a movie. And if I didn't know exactly where to look at what time, I wouldn't have been able to see it. But a very beautiful sight it is. Hence the reason why whenever you see something about Islam or about Ramadan, you see the star and the crescent. It connects directly back to the ideas around Ramadan. The other important point to mention about the importance of Ramadan as it relates to fasting is that the book, the Quran, the scripture, the Islamic scripture, the final book, we believe it to be the final book. The families believe it to be the final book was revealed in this month. The beginning of it was revealed. And so not only is there fasting during that month, but there's reading of the book, of the Quran. This is sort of some, the motivations behind the fast and other things related to it. And so the sighting of the moon is location, location, location. And so, for me as an African-American Muslim woman here in the Bay Area, and those that I associate with versus others who at the school and different families, there's a different relationship to how we respond to when we begin, what source of information says to begin. So again, you'll see some of your families maybe starting a day or so before the others. Let's go right down to the next slide, move forward. Now, reasons for fasting and exemptions. So I've shared some of those ideas, and some of the families are very familiar with this as well. The Quran was revealed during the month of Ramadan, the earlier verses. It's a prescription. It's something that God said that we should do. Just as in any other religion and other spiritual practices, fasting is a way of cleansing and purifying oneself. There are different kinds of fasts. I have a friend who's Catholic. She invites me to fast with her, and I do. I have other friends who fast in different ways. Some people take a water fast or fast abstaining from certain things. But in Islam, God says that fasting is prescribed for us. What does the fasting then do? It helps with it to restrain. We're self-restraining from food. So the children won't be eating. No snacks, lunch, anything. But you're not. It's not also. It's not only restraining from food, but also from gossip. You get in the habit over a year of talking about people. And having inclinations that may not be right, the impulse to do something. When Ramadan comes, then the families and the children are saying, okay, now all of the things, all of the bad habits that I've gotten into, all of the food that I have been eating just on impulse, my belly is full, but I keep eating junk food, you stop doing. You stop, you literally stop. I'm on my second day now. Yesterday was pretty easy. But by the end of the day, I was a bit surprised. I was tired, more tired than I thought. I was really tired. And I think it's because we were returning to work, and also you moving your body a bit more than I typically have been. But during this month, then just as myself, but the families and the children, your energy level is different. It's also a reminder that other people have less than us. So immediately I started looking at who can I give some money to? Who can I give charity to on the streets? And so you'll find that the children may be more giving, the families may be more giving, because there's a blessing associated with it, and because you want to remember that others don't have as much as we have. And so when we eat less. We don't fast all day and then say, give me a steak, I want a lobster, give me that macaroni and cheese over there, give me 2 pieces of cake. No, you eat less. And as a result of that, your stomach starts shrinking. And so then you can't eat more. As it goes on, you eat less, which then affects your energy and your ability to function. And so, as you go on, and as the children and the family members go on, you'll see them slowing down more and more. But there is some who don't have to fast. A pregnant woman doesn't have to fast. Children who haven't reached puberty shouldn't be fasting. So some of our young children shouldn't be fasting. Now, if their parents say whatever they may about that, then that's that parent and that child. But technically, they should not be fasting. If you're crazy or you're insane, you don't have to fast. A young girl on her menses or someone who is sick, you don't have to fast. If you're in your menses or you're sick, or children, some of the young girls on their menses and sick, you may notice they're fasting and then they're eating, then it's probably for one of those reasons. And it's suggested that if you're traveling, then you should break your fast and make it up later, because the fast isn't meant to be difficult. The fast has some aspects to it and how it affects the body, the reasoning, and the healing process, as well as acknowledging circumstances outside of you. But it's not made to be easy. It's made for us to be more appreciative of things. And so if it's difficult, then you should break it. There have been times when I've gotten sick and I had to break my fast. So those are some of the reasons why you may see students and parents who may be eating and they may not be eating. But we should never say, oh, I thought you were fasting. Well, what are you doing eating? Especially if it's a girl. Oh, I thought you were fasting. Then it's like, okay, now you know I'm on my cycle. You don't want to put a young, girl in that situation. So there's more that you can do some research on around that. Before I go on very quickly, this gets to be a very interesting area when we talk about schools of thoughts, because depending on the school of thought and the learning that some of our families may have, there may be some slight variations on things around the practice of the aspect of what you can do and what you can't do and by what age. It's a kind of technical area, but it falls under one of those, which is accepted in Islam. If someone says, well, it's like Christianity in a sense, I'm a Baptist, I'm a Methodist, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, there's some shaded differences on how it's practiced. And so we have the same in Islam. Let's see if there's any more important points around fasting, reason, and exemptions. I think that's it, the basics on it. All right, let's go very quickly to the idea of fasting for this year. So there's a light breakfast before the sunrise. That's number one. And it changes. And I put April 2001 because next year it will be totally different. It won't be the same. There will be some variations in that. And then the year to follow, there'll be some variations. So these windows of times change. There is no food, no drink. If you're married, because outside of marriage, there is no sexual activity. So if you're married, there's no sexual activity, there's no backbiting, there's no gossiping, there's no behavior that takes you away from the idea of your connection with God. It's called taqwa. And so those are things that are prohibited during the day. Now, when the evening comes and the sun goes down, then all of those things are allowable. The restraint is during a certain period of time. The morning meal, number 3, is called Sahur. That's the morning meal. That's before sunrise. So if 4:53 is what it is now. So this morning I was up at 4:30 because I don't want to rush, and you have to finish waking up, and the day is so long, and you're getting a little sleep, and so you have to be really careful about how you're managing your body, and that time then becomes earlier every day by a minute or two. So by the end of Ramadan, you need to be up by 4:25, having whatever it is that you're going to have, something like water, fruit, and things of that sort. That's going to give you the energy that you need for the day. It says that there's a blessing in that. So some of your families and your children are going to be up so early in the morning. They're not coming to school at the regular 8 o'clock hour, so they should be able to get some rest prior to arriving at the 12 o'clock. I think they're coming in, so they should be well rested. So the break fast, which is like akin to the word breakfast, is called iftar, and breaking the fast is at 7:48. So last night we broke it at 7:48, and believe me, the Muslims, wherever they are looking at what time is it, whether it's time to break the fast. Is it time? Because you haven't had any water, and so the talking, if you've been talking a lot and moving, you lose more energy. And so everybody, all the children and everyone is looking for that time to break that fast. And again, as the fast goes on during the month of those 30 days, a minute or two is being added. So by the end of this year's Ramadan, it'll be 8:11 when we will be able to eat. There's the reading of the Quran daily, a 30th. That means then that when the children are rising early in the morning and their parents may say, now read your Quran, then that's going to take them, from 5 o'clock in the morning. And so maybe 6 o'clock, they finished everything. Then there's the prayers that they're going to be making, the regular ones, and then the night ones called Tarawih. And they don't have to make it, but in most communities they do. Since there's COVID, they may not go to the mosque, so they'll be making it at home, which means it might be 10 o'clock when everything is finished. That's a long day. That's a long day for the children, and it's a long day for the adults. At the end of all of that, the 30 days, there's the Eid and the celebration that goes with that. You can do some more research, but those are the 3 days of celebration around that. Now, how to support someone who is fasting with the children or your colleagues. You have to be mindful of the early mornings and late nights and how it affects the body. Like now, like really right now, I'm like, I don't want to talk anymore because you're not drinking. So you can't keep, your throat moist. So you learn how to conserve energy. You learn, and the children they don't do that as well as the adults. In the beginning, it's really, the first week is pretty easy. Second week starts getting a little bit more difficult. But by the third and the fourth week, they're having a hard time. That third and that fourth week, oh, David knows. He was with me on one occasion, and I was interviewing for something, and I was delirious. You have heightened states. If someone peels an orange a block away, you can smell it. You smell everything. You hear everything. And so as you go on through the day, these long days and nights, the long days and nights, then you begin to see that there's an effect on the body. And so just be mindful of that as you work with your families, your students, and your colleagues. Also to provide a space where prayers can be made or just a quiet space for meditation. As I had at Santa Fe, I had a large Muslim population at Santa Fe, and I worked it out with the principal. And so when lunchtime, when recess came and lunchtime, I would take that whole little group and we would go into a portable. And whatever they wanted to do, they were able to do. But it was a place where they could get together and they can conserve their energy. And also I can sort of monitor how they were coming and if I needed to talk to their family about something that they may have needed. Like one little girl, I knew she was dehydrated. And so I called her family and said she needs to, drink more water because I can see she's dehydrated. So just be mindful of that, a place where they can, sit quietly. They don't necessarily have to pray, if it's against the district policy about praying, but, district is okay with being mindful in meditation, a place where they can go and do that. Scheduling of large parties and events with eating around it in that particular month. So if we're looking at and respecting different cultures and traditions, when we calendar things, we should say, okay, is there anything in the Latino community that's going on, in the African community that's going on, in our Asian community that's going on, in our Muslim community that's going on? And so we're calendaring things in respect of that, so that there's not these large parties. Because one, you feel bad, the children feel bad, well, I can't participate. Not only can I not participate, but I can't eat. And it's this joyous activity that's happening and they're sort of just sitting there or having to, stay home or not go. Number 4, if there is such an activity or an event, to be mindful to allow the Muslim children or families or colleagues, before it starts, would you want to make a plate and set it aside? Then we can make a plate and set it aside. And then we feel like, okay, later on, like I've done, I didn't eat. I had a plate set aside. I was excited about that. Like later on, because I'm hearing things like, oh, that's really good. So I'll be thinking, I can't wait to taste that. I would get home and then I would eat that and I would feel the joy of the activity, remembering how it went, like, yep, that's really good. And I could talk to the person and say, I really liked whatever it was. The children will like that as well and the families as well. So be mindful of the population of students and families, particularly the mothers. There are a lot of Muslim mothers you'll see. You see more Muslim mothers at the school than fathers. And so to invite them to do that would be great, to get something, set it aside for them. Don't ask questions, which, I've heard just like forever. They're making statements that are offensive or some kind of joking, like, wow, that must be hard, fasting 30 days. Or what, you can drink water though, right? You can have water though, right? Or don't you wish you could eat now? I had someone tell me for a couple of years, every year, they knew I was fasting every year. And by the 3rd week, they could see you, because you would be able to see, I'm tired. They could see I was tired. And by the 3rd week, she would say, well, just drink some water. And I'd be like, I don't, you saying God would have a problem if you just drink some water? Just drink some water. And even though I would chuckle a bit, I was like, so this, like, I can expect this every year, that by the 3rd week, she's going to say something, because the signs of it become telling. The outer fatigue, it becomes telling, but the inner growth and the expansion of spirit and energy is just something that's a whole nother topic of importance, and the way the body heals and restores itself is extremely important to note as a benefit from the fast. And then lastly, number 7, become more sensitive to the state of the Muslim population, especially nearing that week 3 and 4. So if you know someone is fasting in the beginning, then you just take a note, and usually things are normal, appear to be, but as it progresses on, then the person becomes weaker with less energy. Here, as we near the end, some common expressions, what to say. When it's Ramadan, we say Ramadan Mubarak. Ramadan is the month. Mubarak is an Arabic phrase that translates to be blessing. It's actually, the mu means a person who's blessed. So Ramadan, like, blesses the person. So it translates to be blessed Ramadan. It's a greeting used during Ramadan, the holy month of fasting and prayer for Muslims that lasts for 30 days. Some response that you will hear is Ramadan Kareem. So I'm gonna say Ramadan Mubarak, and another person might say Ramadan Mubarak, or I may say Ramadan Kareem, and they may say Ramadan Mubarak. So it's interchangeable, like we would say good morning, or hi, and how are you doing, and things of that sort. As soon as Ramadan comes and we find out it's a signal, and we start saying Ramadan Mubarak. At the end of Ramadan, there's an Eid, and we say Eid Mubarak. And Eid is like it's like a reoccurring kind of happiness. So on the day of the Eid, which is after the last day of fasting, then Muslims will begin to say Eid Mubarak. You'll hear much more of that. We've already gone over the expression of Assalamu alaikum that you can use when you're working with your families. When you see them and greet them with Assalamu alaikum, Ramadan Mubarak. You may hear your children, some of your family saying Allahu Akbar, which is God is the greatest, or Inshallah, it means if it pleases God, or MashaAllah, if it's God's will. So these are just some common expressions that if you had under your in your tool belt to use, that will really brighten the day of some of your Muslim families in your addressing of them. They say, oh, I'm feeling good. You can just say, oh, alhamdulillah. Or, well, I'm not feeling too good. Oh, mashallah. Those things would help brighten the day. Now, I just wanted to show you very quickly, we're ending now, just some beautiful faces of Muslims in different places. These are Muslims in China, Muslims in Europe, Muslims in Africa. Again, very powerful women in Africa. This is some historical persons in Africa. Muslims in Arabia. So much we can say about tradition, culture, and dress, even as Muslims. Muslims in Russia. That's putting it right there. He's a Muslim too. Muslims in Russia again, and so even the dress may be varied. So you might think that when you see Muslims that they're going to dress a particular way that's going to make it easy for you to identify, oh, that's a Muslim. I can tell she have on black. Well, everybody doesn't wear black. You see how I dress. The Indian Muslims, I didn't put that. They wear the softer scarves. You have Muslims everywhere, and depending on where they are determines, how they dress and the colors that they use. So keep an eye out for those Muslims who may be from another culture or tradition, and they express their expression of Islam is different in terms of how they dress. Muslims in Japan. And I just end with Ramadan Mubarak. So I'm going to stop sharing if there's some questions you might have.